Welcome to Fake Friends MMA. We're not here for a good time, we're here for a long time, and we're here to talk to you about Francis Ngannou and this championship clause. Francis Ngannou is really in this weird situation that we haven't really seen many times before. We kind of seen it with GSP when he came back and fought Michael Bisping and then left, but that was a completely different circumstance. GSP wasn't really active before that fight and didn't eventually, he never was active after that Michael Bisping fight. But what we're going to talk about here is Francis is on his last fight of his contract, but he hasn't extended his contract. He hasn't added more fights to it. He said that, you know what, this contract that I have is not the best. I don't believe I'm paid enough. I don't think it protects me enough. He said things like, I don't like the idea that I have to borrow money in order to fund my camps. Now, Francis Ngannou has said, you know what, I'm going to fight out my contract and take it from there. We'll see what happens. However, the UFC has already put precautions in place. And what the precaution is called is the Champions Clause. This clause, what it does is if a champion is out of fight on his contract, he is automatically extended for either 3 fights or up to a year, whatever comes sooner. What does that mean? Francis can go in and beat Gane, have no fights left on his contract, and be automatically extended for 3 more or for at least a year. If Francis at that point, he says, you know what, I'm not fighting at all. I'm not fighting, I'm going to wait that 1 year out. He has to wait afterwards because of a non-compete that the UFC has. I believe it's 90 days. So he has to wait a year and then wait another 3 months. After that point, the UFC has exclusive rights to negotiate another contract with him. Now, this legal battle that it potentially could turn into, all this kind of stuff could have Francis not competing for the next 2 years after this fight. There's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of contingent things, there's so much that goes around this situation. Francis could go into that next fight against Cyril, bet on himself, beat Cyril Gane, and be offered a much larger purse, a much larger contract where he feels satisfied, he feels wanted, because he's out here, he's telling people that he wants to be with the UFC, regardless of what his other passions are with boxing and whatnot. He still wants to be with the UFC. Now, I personally do not know, I cannot gauge whether or not his main priority is the money and the contract, or it's the boxing. I venture to assume that it's about the money. It's always been about the money. And he's mentioned it previous to this fight as well. This is not the first time that he's talked about it. If we go and look at the archives, he mentions the low pay that he gets compared to his counterparts. Now, on the UFC spectrum, on their side, I understand where the holdup is. The holdup is Francis Ngannou has headlined 2 pay-per-views. He's headlined other fight night cards, but 2 pay-per-views. The first was against Stipe, and the second was against Stipe. I believe the first one did 300,000, and the second did 350,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, in a year where the pandemic year, where you had the Fight Island, and you had Conor versus Dustin 3, you had Izzy versus Vittori Costa, I think is the bigger one. Kamaru versus Jorge. Francis was producing 300,000 pay-per-view buys. In comparison to those other guys, comparison to his other African brothers, he was doing half or even less than half what these guys were producing. Now, from the UFC standpoint, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for paying Francis for what they believe Francis is worth. Is that fair entirely? Is that all the blame go on to Francis for producing only a 300,000 pay-per-view buy? Absolutely not. Stipe Miocic is another fighter he has a hard time selling pay-per-views. He's rarely is he the A side in that pay-per-view in terms of promoting that event. He's also never really been on the good side of the UFC. And the UFC also has not been on the good side of Francis Ngannou. After that first fight with Stipe, Francis really had a shaky relationship with the UFC. Dana White, I remember right after the fight with Stipe, after he lost, he was bashing him. He was telling him his attitude was changing. He acted entitled. There was rumors and talk about how he wasn't training at all for that fight. His like stock really went down, and I feel like that didn't completely attribute to why his numbers aren't as high as they are. But it doesn't help when your own promoters are not legitimately trying to promote you. The most that you would really see from their promotions were calling him the Beast and calling him the Predator and whatnot. But it takes more than that. It takes more, like you see, like guys with Khamzat. Khamzat is being pushed by Dana White any chance he gets, no matter what he does. Conor, the same thing. The list goes on. And this is something that Francis has struggled with since that Stipe fight. What I realistically think is going to happen is Francis is going to go in there, win or lose, he's going to renegotiate another contract with the UFC. Him fighting or trying to get out of his contract is going to be delayed. It's going to be delayed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And the UFC has unlimited time. They don't care. They don't have a timeline. Francis, on the other hand, is not a spring chicken. He's running low on the years left on his fighting career. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe another 5-6 years. But if the UFC really wants to, Francis can go in there. Okay, hypothetically, Francis can go in there, get hurt, right, and be put on a medical suspension. After that, then he has to wait until he gets booked for another fight because of that 1 year. He could be extended or booked for a fight in the 11th month. Then after the 11th month, then they're going to try to renegotiate that contract. It's going to take a very long time. It's going to be dragged out. And the UFC has no shame in doing that. I think he's going to renegotiate for something bigger than what he's currently getting, but not as big as he's potentially wanting. Let us know down in the comments what you think, what's going to happen, regardless of what happens in the fight with Ciryl Gane. What do you think is going to happen with his contract? Will we see Francis in the UFC still, or will he try his most to pull a Mark Hunt and just obliterate the UFC? Let us know.